So today I'm planting some hazelnuts. I ordered a kilo, came today, of Kentish cob nuts. So these are just like a cultivar of hazels that have been grown for perhaps like higher yielding bushes, better shaped nuts perhaps, but they're all basically the same type of tree. They're all hazelnuts. Like I say, these are just cultivated ones. But it'd be nice maybe in the future to have trees that produce a lot more nuts. The squirrels get most of mine, but if I can get some and save some nuts, then that's great. But basically, I'm growing them for the trees. So obviously, I use hazelwood for my bean poles and my pea sticks, and also I use a lot of wood chip here. I do get wood chip bought in by a mate of mine, but it'd be nice now. I've bought my new wood chipper if I can harvest enough of my own coppice to chip, a mountain of wood chip every winter for my own use. So obviously I'll coppice my hazel. Anyway, it depends. The stuff around the edge, probably about every 2 to 3 years. I don't let it get too big because there's a footpath around the edge, and I don't want it kind of hanging over and potentially falling on the fence or sort of killing my nice secure hedge with too much shade. So I keep that lower. But anything inside, I coppice it about probably every 5 or 6 years. So you get nice hazel, probably 2.5, maybe even 3 inches at the base. Some of it, and the chipper I've just bought is a 4-inch chipper, so that's perfect size really for just firing it through the chipper as quick as I can do it. And it'd be nice to have a chip that I know is clean, that hasn't had anything that's been sprayed or whatever in it. It's all going to be organic and nice. So basically, I'm just growing these purely for the trees, and the nuts will just be a bonus if I happen to get a nice harvest of decent nuts. So that the thing with these are that they don't come like you'll get them in the shops. These are literally green. They're not treated or dried or anything. They're literally green in the husk. And all I'm going to do is just dehusk them. I don't know if I have to dehusk them, to be honest. I could just bung them in the husk. But when you watch squirrels, when they take the nuts off my trees, they sit there and they nibble at them, take the husk off, and you can see they have a bit of a sniff, make sure they're a good nut, and then that's what they take, the nut, and go and bury it. And you can see they're just ripening really. They're going brown but still a little bit green. But I reckon there's over 100 definitely in there, a couple of hundred maybe. It's a kilo's worth, and that was about, I think with postage it was £15.70 from a place called Roughway Farm, Kentish cob nuts. So what I'm hoping is, because obviously to buy bare root trees, so I grow my own silver birch for firewood, and I've got ash trees and sycamores and all sorts. I've also collected sycamore seeds I'm going to plant as well. These little winged seeds, so I'm going to plant those. They're all for firewood. Hazels are for wood chip, obviously. But what I'm hoping is to buy hazel trees now. I usually plant 25 or 50 a year, but they have gone up in price, and you're looking at average probably £1.50 to £2, £2.20 a tree. So if I've got a couple of hundred nuts, even if I can only get 50 to 100 trees out of this, if they grow, then I'm going to save myself a lot of money, and also they're going to be in sows, so they should establish a bit better than bare root trees. So I'm going to grow them in these tree trainers. I've got enough of these, I think, for about 10,000. I started growing hedging a few years ago. It never really took off, so I've got a lot of trays I haven't really used, but I do grow my laurel cuttings in these, and privet cuttings, and a few Lanissa, and I sell those online. But these I'm just doing it in these trays for myself. So they're about 6 inches deep, 45 trees per tray. So I've got plenty of trays. So I'm just going to dehusk these, have a count up and see how many trays I need, and then we'll get them planted. I hope you can hear me okay, because it's absolutely pouring with rain now, and with the tin roof it's really noisy. But I'm actually really happy. So I've just dehusked them, all the husks there. So that's 272 hazelnuts. I think these ones might be mixed. They do different types of the cultivated ones on their site, and some of these nuts are sort of bigger, fatter ones, definitely a different shape. So I reckon these might be mixed, which is quite good. I'm quite happy with that. If there's a mix of types. But yeah, so 272. That's basically 6 trays, 6 trays of 45. And a couple over, so there's a couple of black ones I might just bin those. But so yeah, basically 6 trays. So I'm going to get the trays filled, and then I'll show you how I'm going to plant them. So I've filled the tray with multi-purpose compost. I haven't firmed it, just given it a little tap. So I'm going to push the nuts in. I mean, I suppose probably about an inch and a half deep, and then I'll just top up once I've done that. So I'm just literally going to pop a nut on each sal. I don't think you have to worry about getting them pointy end down or anything like that. They'll make their own way, I'm sure. I'll save the black ones. There's a couple of black ones. There's one I haven't dehusked there. I'll save those for last because I'm going to be a couple over and I just won't plant those ones. But basically it's as simple as this. So like I say, really I'm hoping even if I only get 50 trees. I mean, I don't see why this won't work. I've never done it before with hazels, and I've also never planted sycamore from collected seed. So I'll show you after I've done the hazels how I'm going to do the sycamores as well. And it'd just be interesting to see how well they come on. So basically I'm just going to push them down a couple of inches. So they're kind of on their side. That's how they naturally lay. So at whichever end the seed pops, it will just come up. So I'm just putting them about that deep. So what's that, about just over an inch and a half, something like that. Just pop them all in. You know, I'm sure Mr. Squirrel doesn't worry about which way up he plants them, and I get seedlings popping up all around the Smallholding. If they're in a place I don't want them, I just wait till the winter and then I move them. But I very often just let them come up where they are. And I love hazels. They're one of my favourite trees. They're great windbreak. They provide a lot of leaf. When you copse them regularly, you get a lot of leaf fall, and that helps obviously because this was just a grass paddock. So it helps with sort of creating that forest floor that I want. And obviously great for wood chip and great for nuts and wildlife and that. So yeah, I really do like the old hazels. So this is why I'm trying to get a lot of them going on the holding. Obviously the sycamore, ash, other bits and bobs that I grow, I harvest for logs. I've got some London plane I've grown from seed, quite all sorts of things. But I mainly try and stick with sycamore and silver birch, since my ash trees are dying from ash dieback. They're the ones I'm sticking for with logs, but ash all around the edges and as an understory, because obviously the log trees I let go to about an 8 to 10 year cycle, and these are sort of more understory and all around the edges, the hazels, for a bit of privacy because I've got the footpath and the road, and obviously for wood chip and everything as well. So that's basically it. That's what I'm doing. So I've topped that up and it's just been gently firmed in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these up on top of my IBC tanks on a sheet of ply, so that the squirrels can't just come in and steal them all, and I'll put some netting over the top. So I'm going to get the rest of these potted up and then we'll put them out. So that's the hazelnuts all planted, and I've put them out up on top of the IUBCs to keep them out of the reach of mice, because mice will steal everything, and I'm going to net them over to keep the squirrels off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plant these sycamore seedlings. Never done these before. I did have a little read, and apparently sycamores can have a bit more of a dormancy in them. So if they don't get enough cold in the first year and the first winter, they can actually stay dormant possibly for a year and will then come the following spring. So rather than use a lot of compost and put them all individually into sows, I'm going to put them in this old tray. It's a bit of a wonky old tray, but I'm going to put a sack of compost in there. It's got some holes drilled in the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of mix them in and level it out. It'll probably be 2 or 3 inches thick, and any that sort of come on next spring, I'll just prick them out when they're little trees and prick them out and pot them on into sow trays or into individual pots or whatever, so they can just sit in there basically and until they start to grow, and I'll then prick them out. So I'll get on and get these planted, and then I'll show you sort of how I'm storing them through the winter. So I'm literally just going to tip this sack of compost in, and then I'll just roughly break up any lumps. just sort of break up the lumps. And then they can sit in here. I'll stick this again. I'll stick it up on the top of the IBC. I don't know whether mice will eat sycamore seeds, but I should imagine they would. They tend to eat any sort of seeds and nuts. So I just want to keep it out of the way of mice. And then they can sit in here, and hopefully, I mean, I always get a lot of cold weather down here. So they just need to, it's called stratification, I think is what they call it. So that basically any seeds and nuts that need to have a period of dormancy and cold, and it usually needs to go down to at least sort of freezing. I think a lot of people will put things in the fridge or in the freezer. Well, I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm just going to literally chuck these on here and leave them to it. So I literally just pulled a few amples off. This wasn't one of my trees. This was actually, I was looking at a mowing job, and there was a big sycamore tree there. Loads of nice seed on it. The tree itself looked a lovely tree. So I was quite happy with the sort of tree it is, because there's different types of sycamores, like there is with all trees really, all different sort of types of species within the sort of subspecies within the species. But this one was a nice big tree, and I'm growing for timber, for firewood. So the bigger and faster growing, the better. But you know, sycamore's a sycamore really, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just going to sort of break these up a little bit because they're in clumps, and then I can just mix them in to the sort of top inch or two of this compost. Again, this is just a basic multi-purpose, a cheap one. And there's a few holes in here to let the moisture out. I won't need to water these obviously through the winter. We're getting rain now. The heat wave has gone, so this will be fine. Come the spring, I'll just have to keep this watered. The tree trays with the hazels in, I can stand in grow bag trays if I'm worried about them. But with my cuttings that I do in them, I just give them a water every day if I need to in a heat wave. But they tend to hold the moisture quite well, those pots, those cell trays. They're not too bad. So right, so that's split up. So I'm just going to kind of spread them out over the surface, and I'm just going to sort of work them in. If a few of them are on the surface, that's fine. I'm not too worried. They tend to just sort of helicopter down and land on the ground, and you know, I'll get seedlings of these popping up here and there from my trees that seed, but the rabbits tend to sort of eat them down. They obviously just kind of lay on the surface, and the rain will sort of knock them in a little bit and set them down. But basically I'm just going to do that. I don't think they really need to be below ground too much. I think that will probably do. And so we will go and put these now out on top of the IBC and get them netted over to stop any birds and squirrels hooking at them. And then we'll have to wait till spring and see what happens. So that can just sit there. 6 trays on the ply there. That one direct on top of the IBC. I've got this old bit of bird netting that I will just throw over them. Have to get up on here. So this will just hopefully stop any squirrels from sniffing them out for an easy meal, and being up on the top here will stop any mice, I hope. So I'm really hoping these will do well. So I'll leave them now, obviously all through the winter into the spring, and as anything starts to pop up, I will do a little update video. And show you how they've done. But yeah, so hopefully this works. Like I say, 270 trees, £15.70. You know, if they grow in the first year in these little cell trays, I'd expect them to get to about 30 to 40 centimetres. And then I'll be planting them out this time next year, or any time really during the dormant period. But even if I get 50%, even if I get 25% that actually grow, then it's saved me a whole lot of money. And it's nice doing your own trees, you know, from the beginning, from seed. It's that involvement all the way through to planting, to harvesting, and using the end product. But yeah, so I'll keep you updated in the spring, early summer, when anything happens or doesn't happen. I'll show you either way. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're interested in any of the things I'm doing and you're liking the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. It obviously shows YouTube that my videos are being viewed and helps the channel grow. But we'll see you next time, guys. Take it easy.